I was a terrible student. I was probably one of the worst students that Rosemont High School probably ever produced. When I graduated, maybe not that bad, but I was pretty bad, okay? I was always a very popular kid. Teachers loved me, students loved me, but I was just terrible, okay? I had dyslexia. I had probably, today I'd probably be diagnosed with every single thing on the planet.
ADD,
the whole 9 yards. I'd be freaking medicated like you would not believe. I would have I'd probably have like a freaking running prescription at a pharmacy or something.
Auto ship.
Oh yeah, auto ship, exactly. They would just drop ship it to me, This is who I was.
Welcome to the Nick and Jimmy Show. I'm Jimmy, this is Nick. On today's episode, we have Terry Kilakos. Terry, welcome on the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Great
you, Terry.
to be here.
Tell us, Terry, who are you, what do you do, and share your story.
I'm the president of Northeast Mortgages and the founder of Northeast Group of Companies. So our companies specialize in real estate and mortgages, financial services, damage insurance, all that kind of good stuff. Anything that's related to a real estate transaction or your financial kind of well-being, we handle.
Canada and the US?
Canada primarily,
Okay.
Quebec primarily, a little bit in Canada, and we're just starting to dip our feet into the US markets.
And where in the US?
Florida, New York, New Jersey. We have a couple of different places that we'll do business in.
Interesting.
Mortgage-wise.
And how and why this industry?
Well, good question. So, I'm a product of kind of an immigrant upbringing, right? My parents owned a triplex. We lived in one of the units. They rented out the rest. So, real estate was kind of always in my blood, just like it is in a lot of, Greeks and Italians and Portuguese blood, because the philosophy is you collect rents and you let your tenants pay for you to live. Mm-hmm. And that was the philosophy of my mother and my father, which I kind of adopted. I bought real estate at an early age.
What age?
24, when I bought my first fourplex. And
you lived inside, no?
And I lived inside.
Okay, that's good.
And that fourplex was in Hochelaga Maisonneuve. And I always say there was bikers on one side of me and a crack house on the other.
Really?
Back then, Hochelaga was not what Hochelaga is today. So it was always in me. My wife in 2006, tail end, she said, hey, you know what? I signed you up to the real estate agents course. And I ended up starting those courses. I did them, and the rest is history. It ended up kind of revolutionizing my life. I always say, when the universe kind of favors your endeavors, Absolutely. Things just kind of line up. And I did the courses.
12 years ago.
12 years ago, yeah. And my intention was never to actually really practice even. I was just more like going into it so that I could find out what real estate brokers knew. And I remember kind of the first day of my classes, the teacher went around and said, I want you guys to all kind of stand up and talk about yourselves a little bit so that your fellow classmates can find out who you are. And I got up and I said, just want to let you guys know I have no interest in becoming a real estate broker. I actually don't like real estate brokers, but I'm here to find out what you guys know so that when I do a transaction, you guys don't screw me. And my teacher at that point came up to me and he goes, you have no intention of becoming a real estate broker? I said, nope. And he goes, well, why are you here? You're spending a lot of money for nothing. And I'm like, well, it's something that I want to do. And he said, well, why don't you go become a mortgage broker? And I said, mortgage broker? What the hell is what's a mortgage broker? And he goes, you should go speak to someone and find out what, about the industry. You might actually like it. And I did, and I started off my career at Multi-Prets, which is where I ended up working.
Nuns Island.
In Nuns Island, exactly. And at Multi-Prets, I came into it. I wish I could say that I went into the business for, altruistic reasons, that it was something that I always wanted to do. It wasn't. And anyone that I speak to, my clients or whoever, I'm very upfront with this. When I came into this business, it was 100% for selfish reasons.
Okay.
And it was, my mortgages are coming up for renewal. What better person to give me a mortgage than me, right? That was my thought process on it. So I got into the business, and I always say that this business found me. The real estate world actually discovered me rather than me discovering it. And I realized that I was actually very good at my job, very good at what I did, and very quickly, my kind of success curve went something kind of along these lines. Exponentially, it went up. And started advertising, started getting out there. And then by the 2009, I ended up having my own team in Saint-Laurent with Multi-Prets, which was unheard of for someone that just gets into the business to have his own team. And by 2008, we had already incorporated Northeast. We knew which direction I was going. We knew that we were actually going to be launching agencies. And by tail end of 2010, beginning of 2011, we actually opened the doors to the public to Northeast, which I think back and I look at this journey that I've been on over the last, dozen years, and I'm like, I can't believe it. It's
so basically
miraculous.
You never visualize yourself being to where you are right now with the mortgage industry?
No. And it has a lot to do with where I come from, where my upbringing, how my upbringing was, and this is not, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I had a bad upbringing. On the contrary, I had very loving parents, and, just like every Greek, I had my grandparents that I lived with and my grandparents, and I had a couple of sisters and stuff, and it was a very loving household, great family, great, great foundation. But by no means was it a foundation that would say that I would be where I am today.
Okay.
Right? It was very humble beginnings. We lived in my land.
Okay.
And, today, again, if you look at my land is very trendy and it's the hip place to be. It wasn't the case back then. Back then in the 80s, when you lived in my land because you couldn't afford anything else. It was, my parents bought a triplex in the 70s for $23,000 in my land. We still have that triplex.
Oh, wow.
Worth over $1 million now.
Yeah, it's pushing maybe even $2 million.
Wow.
They're up there, the prices. But that's not the neighborhood I grew up in. The neighborhood I grew up in is, kids kind of playing in the streets, crack houses, weed being sold on every corner, a lot of gangs, a lot of violence, it was not what it is now, So to say that the product of that would become what it is, who I am today, there was a lot of personal development that had to occur, we talked right before we started, we talked about Dale Carnegie. I've done Dale Carnegie, I've done Anthony Robbins, I've done all those things, and those are the catalysts that basically started to change my mindset and started to change the way that I thought and the way that I saw the world.
How did you, when you say you did Tony Robbins and Dale Carnegie, you went to seminars, did you read books, or did you do audio tapes, or everything above?
All of the above.
Okay.
But you took action though.
I took action, and that was the one thing, because I always had this fire in me, and the fire was always there. Like it was a small kind of flame that was burning inside me.
Burning desire.
A burning desire, like I was the same, I'll say this, and a lot of people say, oh, they started working at a young age. I legit started working at 9 years old. Okay, so 9 years old, I was working at the pharmacy is not there anymore, so I could say at Vacus Pharmacy. Okay, so Vacus was this little pharmacy on the corner of St. Joseph and Park Avenue, and it was a kind of neighborhood place, and they would bring in kids from the neighborhood to kind of work, and I was getting paid like $2 an hour. I would stock shelves, I would do all kinds of different things. Occasionally I'd be in the back, counting, prescriptions for people, like talking legitimate work here. No, we're not talking about like, paper routes. No offense to anyone that has a paper route. Paper routes are great, but this was an actual job that I had, that I would actually go to a place and work.
$2 an hour then is what now?
10,
Probably
eight.
$10. Yeah, $10.
At 9 years old.
Yeah, it's legit. It's good, right? I think minimum wage at the time was probably, I don't know, like $5-6 or something, so go figure. So I was working at that, and I did that for a couple of years, and I didn't like it. It wasn't something that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed getting paid, and then from that I went and I worked in a factory. And I would do, in the summers, I would go and I would do their shipping, so I was literally, package up all the clothing, put it in the boxes, ship it off, to different suppliers and different people. So I did that, and then very quickly after that, I ended up working at the Vic. And I worked at the Vic from the age of 16 to almost 24 years old. And when I was working at the Vic, I did everything under the sun. I worked in the kitchen, I worked in housekeeping, I worked in transport. I used to take the dead bodies to the morgue, so it was good stuff, but I loved the money. Like it was what motivated me and what drove me. And right throughout the whole time, I'm saying this, and I remember when I was working at the Vic, and I would sit with other people, I would always have a book, so I'd have my book with me, and it was always something motivational, something inspiring that I'd be reading. That's when I actually started reading the first time Napoleon's Hill, Think and Grow Rich.
Was that your first book?
Which is right there, right?
Is it there? There you go.
Yeah.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Absolutely. Was it my first book? I think it was. I think that was the first book that I actually that I had picked up and read. And I remember people that I was working with making fun of me. I remember reading the book, and they were like, what are you reading? This is silly, this is stupid. You're going to be working here for the rest of your life. Why are you reading this?
Book was laughing now, huh?
And I'm like, and I think back to that, and I'm like, all these people that I was working with, they should actually, because a lot of them I know still are working at, the hospitals. There's nothing wrong with working in a hospital. I mean, it's a great job. But I think back to that, and these people should all kind of look and say, what was that book that Terry was reading? Maybe we should actually pick it up and read it, because maybe that's what was part of the catalyst of what kind of made him into who he is,
It changes your mindset.
And that's actually very, very true. And another question, how important is to have the right mindset in your opinion?
It's all mindset. It's all mindset. It starts with that's the spark, and that's the spark that I was talking about, right? That's the little flame that was inside me. And all these things, like the Think and Grow Rich, I remember reading Power. That was another
Tony
great
Robbins,
book. No, not Power was, I'm trying to remember the author. Great book. It was all about how to have power. And so I picked up that book and I had started reading it. And
48 Laws of Power.
48, yes, exactly. 48 Laws of Power. Great book. Okay. And these are all things that I'll never forget. That specific book, I took it one time and I had it. We had a little, when I was working in transport at the Vic, we had like this little lounge area like this, and there's a coffee table, and we would all sit around waiting for the next person to die or needing to go from test to test. And we would sit there until we got a call. So while I was waiting, I would read. And when I would go to take care of a patient, I would put down the book. And one time I come back, and one of my colleagues is reading this book. And he's like, you read this? I'll never forget the conversation I had with him. He goes, you know that if you apply these things, he goes, that just makes you a psychopath. Straight up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? How are you interpreting this, right? And I'm like, what you're reading into it one way, I'm reading into it a different way, you know? So mindset, just going back to that, is key, because if you don't have that mindset, if you don't have that flame inside you, none of this that will actually work, right? I don't personally, there needs to be that foundation there, or you need to have something that occurs in your life that's going to actually propel you to
Absolutely.
to make that change in your life.
Would you say that, because a lot of people say, you know, when you make it, you know, you were born as an entrepreneur. Do you find that to be true?
I think that you need to have like I said, that bug,
Okay, the bug.
right? Because there's a lot of people out there that would love to become entrepreneurs, but they don't necessarily have, I call it, you know, my wife is, by the way, a huge part of what I do. And if it wasn't for my wife, no matter how much flame I have inside me, I wouldn't be where I am, because she has been a huge support system with me. And if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have even been able to build half of what we've built. There's a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs, but don't quite understand what it really means to be an entrepreneur.
So they're entrepreneurs.
Richard Branson had said that he's become an entrepreneur or a business owner. You've got to forgive me, I'm probably messing up the quote, but he basically said, I did it so that I can work half days. Entrepreneurs work half days. And they were like, what do you mean? You're only working 4 hours a day? And he's like, no, I'm working 12 hours a day. That's a half day. You know, and that's what it takes. You know,
Work ethic.
The work ethic, the hustle has to be there. If it's not there, it's useless.
Absolutely.
You know, when I got into the mortgage business, one of the reasons why by 2009 I was able to have my own office is because while most mortgage brokers are working 3 hours a week on their business, because this is what the typical real estate broker, typical mortgage broker is doing, it's 3 hours a week, maybe 5. Okay, for the ones that are like super eager, okay?
This is per day or per week you're talking about?
Per week, I'm talking about. Okay, this is the average person.
It's not even part-time then.
It's less than part-time. Okay?
That's why they have average results.
It's a hobby, exactly. And they have less than average results, and most of them are out of the business. For me, I was working from 8 to 11 every day. 8 in the morning to 11 at night.
Well, it's the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the time that so what I would do in 1 year was the equivalent of what they would do in 5-6 years. So obviously by the time 2 years has gone by, I have the same experience as someone that's been in the business for 10 years. This is why I end up with my own office within a couple of years. This is why Northeast has gone from here to here in a very short period of time, just because of the work ethic. Not only mine, but the work ethic of my wife, the work ethic of our brokers, the work ethic of the entire Northeast family. Whether it's the real estate side, the mortgage side, the financial side, it doesn't matter. Everyone has a sickening work ethic that makes most people cry, literally. But if you don't have it, it's just not going to work.
And what, like you said before, something like an event happened that made you want to become an entrepreneur?
Your aha moment.
Like your aha, yeah, exactly. Like what was your defining moment?
So, my wife and I, in 1999, I started working at Investors Group. Okay, I studied, so just to kind of give you a little bit of a backstory, I was a terrible student. I was probably one of the worst students that Rosemont High School probably ever produced. When I graduated, maybe not that bad, but I was pretty bad, okay? I was always a very popular kid. Teachers loved me, students loved me, but I was just terrible, okay? I had dyslexia. I had probably, today I'd probably be diagnosed with every single thing on the planet.
ADD,
the whole 9 yards. I'd be freaking medicated like you would not believe. I would have I'd probably have like a freaking running prescription at a pharmacy or something.
Auto ship.
Oh yeah, auto ship, exactly. They would just drop ship it to me, This is who I was. Right, so this was my challenge. I would get to class, I couldn't focus, I couldn't concentrate. You know, I would sit down and I would write exams, and the whole front part of my brain would feel like it was going to explode. You know, this is the reality.
Is that why you lost your hair?
Exactly. I told you why I lost my hair. We had this conversation. It's the sexy factor.
Of course.
Right? So basically what ends up happening is I graduate high school to grade 9 math. Less than anything, like it was just bad, okay? I go into college, and when I went into college, I was in social sciences. Truthfully, I wanted to shoot myself in the head, okay? No offense to anyone that's in social sciences, but I remember going into class one day, and our teacher said, okay, everyone take out your books. Today we were going to, it was called Dreams in Literature, that class. And the teacher comes in and says, take out your Alice in Wonderland book.
Okay.
And I'm like, Alice in Wonderland? Like, seriously, this is what we're covering now in college? Like, I thought that we would be a little bit past this. And instead of taking out any books, I closed my bag and I walked out. And when I walked out of class,
How was it?
I said, I'm going to go into the forces. My dream was to always be a fighter pilot.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I really wanted to do. So I went to the recruitment office on Guy in St. Catherine, and I walked in and I said, I'm here, I want to be a fighter pilot. And they looked at me and they said, okay, you're the right height, you've got 20/20 vision, the right build. I'm Greek, so it's by default like you're in, right? So they said, you know, but what are your grades like? And I was like, I knew you were going to ask. I have my high school transcript right here. And they looked at it and they were like, you can't be a fighter pilot. Like, you don't have anything that you need. You don't have maths, you don't have chemistries, you don't have physics, you don't. And I'm like, what do I need? They're like, you need your maths, you need your chemistries, you need your physics, you need to be top of your class. I said, okay, I'll be back. And they're like, okay. And I left and I picked up the phone and I called a buddy of mine who was in the same boat as me. And I said, what are you doing? And he's sitting at home doing nothing. I said, okay, I'm coming to pick you up. We're going to Montreal High. He goes, why are we going to Montreal High? I said, we're going to go get our maths, chemistries, physics, and all that stuff. And he's like, you're cracked. Why the hell? We've graduated high school. Why the hell would we go back and do this? I'm like, I need to do this. So I went back and I got hundreds across the board. In something that I was passing with 30s and 40s, well, I wasn't passing, I was failing with 30s and 40s, and when I finally passed, it was with a 60 in grade 9. I got hundreds, because now I had intention, I had a purpose for why I was doing it. And I went back to the forces and I said, I'm here, I'm back, here's my grades. And they said, this is fantastic. And they set me up with interviews, and at the time I was actually engaged to a girl in my early 20s, and she lost it on me. She was like, you can't do this. Like, this is not the kind of relationship that I'm looking for. I'm not interested in being with someone that, you know, I can't go to freaking Cold Lake, Alberta and live in barracks with you, like, you know. So I made a decision to not go into the forces, and I went into engineering instead, and I regretted that decision, and it bothered me for a really long time. And then from that, I started trying to find myself again, because I thought I had found myself.
You found your purpose at that moment?
But that moment, what I realize now is that moment was leading me up to everything else that I've done in my life right now. It was, you know, I don't regret anything that I've done now. I don't regret that I didn't go into the forces. I regretted it back then. Right now, I don't. And basically what ended up happening was I went into engineering. I didn't really like it. Then I went to go work for Investors Group in 1999. And it was at IG. This is a very long, convoluted story to kind of bring it back to. One of my division managers at the time, he was the one that put me on the Anthony Robbins program. And when I started the Anthony Robbins program, which was Personal Power at the time, I started the program having a net worth of probably minus $3,000. By the time I ended the program, I owned the fourplex in Hochelaga.
So because of that...
Yes. How long was the program?
30 days.
Can you sign us up?
No problem. Anyone that hasn't done personal power needs to do personal power. Okay, if you're in business and you haven't done it, you got to do it. And it's from the 80s, and it's, you know, you're going to talk. Anthony Robbins talks about, you know, Michael Jackson, and he talks about all kinds of people, but it's a great program.
You hear that, Anthony Robbins? Send him a check.
That's it, exactly. So basically what ends up happening is I end up doing this program. It changes my philosophy, changes the way I think. It actually backfires a little bit on my division manager who got me onto this program, because it was the beginning of the end for me of even being at Investors Group.
And you were there for a long 2 years, wasn't it?
Almost 2 years. But it was really something that didn't fit my personality. I would invest in real estate, I would have clients that would come in and they would say to me, hey, I have 50 grand to invest. What do you think I should do with it? I wanted to grab them and say, go buy yourself a building.
Instead of mutual funds.
Yeah. Instead, I had to be a hypocrite and say, oh, you should buy, you know, IG Growth Fund, or you should buy this, or you should buy that. So because I felt like a hypocrite, I had to get out of the business. And I got out of the business, and then I went a little bit into the engineering world, which is where I met my wife. And then we both got laid off. And when we got laid off, I decided at that point that I wouldn't work for anyone anymore. I couldn't rely on someone else's whims and needs and stuff like that. You know, like it was too, I couldn't leave my life in the control of someone else.
And also building somebody else's dream too.
Exactly. I needed to become the master of my own destiny.
Yeah.
So becoming the master of my own destiny was part of the whole journey. And I made that decision when I had gotten laid off. I couldn't find work. I did go work for the government, for the Department of Defense at that point for a little while. Also very hypocritical work, because it wasn't really my personality. Did it for a while. Liked it mildly, felt a little hypocritical doing it, did what I had to do, and then eventually got into the mortgage world after that. You know, that was the journey to where I'm at. And every year doing Anthony Robbins, every January.
Were you there program. 2 months ago, last month? It was in Ottawa.
No, I wasn't there. But I've done Business Mastery. I've done all his Unleash the Power Within programs. I've done all kinds of, I've read all his books. Great stuff. The guy,
he's really authentic. He's like a
truly a saint.
His podcasts are awesome.
Absolutely, 1,000%. 1,000%. You know, so and I think that's really one of the reasons that's one of the things that actually propelled our business is you know, kind of that. And my wife is along the same lines. You know, I got her into doing the whole Anthony Robbins and stuff, and it changed our life.
You guys are a power couple now.
Yeah.
And how important is that, to have a supporting spouse?
It's key, because if your spouse is not supportive of you, it doesn't matter what you do, it will not work. There will be there's going to be friction in your work, or there's going to be friction at home, which is going to ultimately spill over. And you have to understand, in our world, actually in anything that you do, life is all about sales, right? Sales is key.
Absolutely.
If people that say that they're not, you know, like people that are professionals, okay, and I put this in quote marks, they say that they're not salespeople. Everyone is a salesperson.
Everybody, since we're born.
Since you're born. You're selling your parents on toys to buy you. You're selling your girlfriend to be with you. You're selling the girl at the bar to, you know, sleep with you maybe. Right? Whatever. It's always a sale. Everything you do is a sale. And if you don't realize that, or you shy away from it, maybe you won't be as successful as you think you are. My wife is a computer engineer, full-fledged, okay? Graduated from Concordia, very smart woman. She, like I said, we worked in an IT company together. It was difficult when we first worked together. So when we first started, because that's how we met, we worked in the same environment. We actually, there was a lot of tension between us. We butted each other's head, you know, like... Yeah. And then eventually we got laid off. Our relationship started to form. Then we were apart. So she was working at Bell. I was working, doing my hustling and doing the odd job here and there. And then eventually we came back together. Once Northeast started to form, she came into the mix with me to kind of help me out, and then eventually ended up dropping Bell altogether. The challenge at the beginning was, we had a steady source of revenue that was coming in from her working at Bell. When she left that, all of a sudden we're down, a good amount of money annually, right? But we don't have that source of income. That causes problems. That caused problems.
Pressure, stress.
Pressure.
So she was the bread and butter for
Yes,
a certain. So
absolutely.
she was support. So even when you were down, broke, had nothing, she was taking care of you.
She had, exactly. We had the resources, right, that were coming in from there.
The cash flow.
The cash flow, which was good. And we had rental properties and stuff like that. But, an engineer's salary is an engineer's salary, right? It's good money that was coming in. So her stopping that caused problems in our relationship. It caused problems in our business. And the problem wasn't caused by her. It was actually caused by me, my mental state, where I was like, oh my God, now I have the whole weight of the company, the family, everything on my shoulders. I don't know if I can do it. Right now you end up having these scripts. These doubts and these things that have been put in your mind from parents, from grandparents, from all these things kind of starting to replay themselves.
You should have done this.
Go get a government job. Exactly. So you end up having all these things that start to play out in your mind, and resentment starts to form, and all kinds of things start to happen. So that was the challenge early on in our relationship, early on in our business relationship together. It took a couple of years. I grew, and I always say I grew up as a business owner and as a man, okay? And by doing that, I was actually able to accept that and take on that responsibility. And when I accepted that and took on that responsibility, our life transformed. Everything transformed. It was hard. There was a lot of sleepless nights, but we quickly learned that she had a certain skill set that was an asset. I had a skill set that was an asset, and they complemented, and the two skill sets never even really had to meet. To a certain degree. She did her thing, I did my thing in the company.
And which is what now?
So she will handle a lot of the operations, she'll handle the financial, she'll handle stuff like that of the company, whereas I will handle, the staff, the sales, the this, that. So my strengths were here, her strengths were here. My strengths were the knowledge on how to structure mortgages, how to structure the finances of an individual. So all that was good. I think I was more, at the beginning, more the social person, where she was more kind of introverted.
Makes sense. Dale Carnegie.
There you go. Exactly. But she did Dale Carnegie also.
Oh, okay.
We did it together.
Cool.
She was more kind of a little bit introverted. I was more extroverted. Which kind of led to a lot of our success. Oddly enough, now she's become very extroverted also. So she's,
like we met her
I've rubbed off on her. I'll give myself credit on that. She's gonna watch this. She's gonna be like, it's not because of you.
And was there a point in starting off as an entrepreneur, like did you have a really dark moment, like a dark hour that you're like, you know what, man, screw this, I just want to quit, man, I'm fed up?
So I sent a message. I met Richard Branson a few years back.
Okay.
And for any millennial that's watching this, okay, if you don't know who Richard Branson is, Google him, okay, go find out who it is. You'd be surprised how many people do not know who Richard Branson is.
Really?
It actually shocks me.
Wow.
Okay, our generation knows who Richard Branson is. New generation doesn't know who he is. Unfortunately, you got to Google him. Anyways, he is the only person in my life that when I met them, I was actually starstruck. I don't get starstruck very often, but for him, like, just because I felt for me that I had a connection with him. Him too, very bad at school, dyslexic, dropout, built something out of nothing. There was way similarities. And I sent a message to him. I had met him a few years back, and I sent a message. And
where did you meet him?
I had met I do advertising with, back then it was Astral Media, and when Astral Media, when Mix 96 became Virgin, they had an event for a lot of the sponsors to meet Richard Branson and stuff like that. So I met him. It was a nice lunch that we all had together. I sent him a message after, and I asked him. I said, "Do you ever feel like just giving it up and just flipping burgers?" And it was something that I used to always say. I am just gonna give it all up and flip burgers. Those dark moments are every single day. Okay? Those moments of doubt, of self kind of fear are there constantly to this day. You know, every time something doesn't go right, self-doubt comes in. Did I do this right? Did I do this? Did I do that? Okay? The key is not, and now this is the response of probably a dozen very successful people who all, oddly enough, told me the exact same response. The answer is that it'll always be there, right? That self-doubt will always be there. If it's not there, you're not human. The key is how quickly do you bounce back from it? And I remember Darren Hardy. I don't know if you're familiar with Darren.
Compound effect.
Compound
Amazing.
effect. So he was the editor of Success Magazine. Okay.
That's right.
Darren Hardy too. I've met. Great guy, and he had written an article in Success Magazine and on one of his audio CDs where he talks about how quickly, he asked, what kind of a ball are you? Something like that. And, you know, are you a super ball? Are you a bowling ball? Are you a tennis ball? And then when you kind of go into it, he's saying that because he's saying, well, how quickly or how high can you bounce back from what has basically hit you?
Exactly.
Right? And when that self-doubt comes in, once upon a time, it used to paralyze me. So I would get the self-doubt, it would come in, the voices would come into my head, they would start talking, creating all this negative energy, trying to take root, okay? And it would take root for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, months.
And then you explode.
Okay, and then I would snap out of it, okay? And over the years, that time period becomes less and less and less and less and less to today, when that self-doubt comes into my mind, when I have those voices that creep into my head, very quickly, I realize what they are. I realize that it's programming from my past. I realize that it's basically, maybe I don't know something, and I get them out of my mind. And I move on to the next task, and I move on to the next thing. Failure, self-doubt is a common daily occurrence for anyone that's successful, anyone that's in business.
So the question is, are you going to be a bowling ball or a tennis ball?
I'm a super ball.
Super ball.
There you go.
How fast does that go up?
Dang, it's like a rocket ship, right?
Like Viagra.
I love
Exactly.
it. Or Cialis.
Cialis. Yeah. So it's that's the real question. You know, how quickly do you bounce back? It doesn't matter, you know, whether it's Darren Hardy, Richard Branson, Barbara Corcoran, who my wife met years ago and has asked the same question to. Everyone will come back with the same answer. How quickly you bounce back from your problem or your garbage that's in your mind will be the ultimate success. Will determine your success.
I like it.
Yeah, and there's a book, Fail Fast, Fail Forward. Right?
By who?
Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell.
Okay, great.
Great book, okay? Anyways, but that one right there that you're talking about, the interesting thing was originally when he first came out with that book, his wife begged him
Not to release it?
not to release it.
Exactly, yeah.
She was like, you're going to be seen as
This is
a
who now?
nut job.
Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
Okay, that's right.
It's Napoleon
That's the
Hill.
audio you sent me
Yeah.
a few years ago or something.
Yeah, where he's talking, interviewing with the devil.
That's right.
It's Napoleon Hill literally interviewing the devil. That's the book.
Getting goosebumps just.
Yeah, okay. And it's because the thing is, if you've read Think and Grow Rich and you understand how the mastermind works that he talks about within the book, part of the mastermind that he created was with the devil, okay? And he writes this book, Outwitting the Devil, and it's his interview with the devil, and he's asking the devil a question about how he manipulates humanity and how he manipulates business owners,
Propaganda and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And his wife begged him. She said, "You cannot release this book. If you release this book," and especially back then, I mean, these are very religious times. This is like from the 30s. And
They would have
40s.
crucified him.
They would have crucified him.
Yeah.
So he didn't release it. And on his deathbed, I think the book went to his wife, and his wife didn't release it. And it was only like a couple of generations later or something.
Like in the 80s or something?
I don't remember when it was, but at some point they ended up releasing that book, and gangbusters. It was crazy. It's such a good book. Outwitting the Devil, highly recommended by Napoleon Hill. Highly, highly recommended. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Like I can't even, people ask me, what book can you recommend?
You can't even say it.
I can't
so many.
even remember like half of the books.
Yeah.
Like I'm the type of guy, I walk into chapters and I'm like, oh, this looks interesting, and I grab them
And till this day, you read every day?
yeah, as much as I could, yeah. I do a lot of audio programs,
Okay.
What, audio?
audio, so like, Audible, driving
Yeah.
into work,
Yeah.
Podcasts?
Podcast, stuff like that. But the majority of the books that I read are actually read to me via Audible. Plug for Audible, there you go. Send me my check.
You wake up early in the morning?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. I
5:55.
5:55, you remember. So my alarm is set for 5:55.
But you snooze it.
I snooze it sometimes. I am not a morning person. It kills my wife. My wife, she is out of bed at 5 a.m. every day. She'll go to bed at midnight and she's out of bed at 5. She can't sleep past that. And I have a lot of respect for her for that. For me, it is a challenge. I get up, you can't talk to me, you can't, don't try and have a conversation with me, don't try and, I get my coffee, I'm a disaster in the morning, but I try.
But
and sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not.
Is it in order to be successful, do you really have to wake up at 5, 6 in the morning?
No, absolutely not. I think that it's a fallacy, to be perfectly honest with you. Does it give you an advantage? Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Waking up at 11? No.
You get nothing done, yeah.
Your day is gone,
Exactly.
Especially in our world. You gotta, mind you, if you're in the club business,
yeah, you're working at
different
night.
ballgame.
Exactly. It's a different ballgame. Waking up at 11 might actually be what makes sense for you.
Exactly.
And I think it's different for everyone. When I did end up joining the Canadian Forces, and I worked, I was in Shiloh, Manitoba for a month or so, and I remember we would wake up every morning at 4:30. We would be in bed by 11:30 at night. 4:30, we had to be outside.
Jogging.
13 clicks. By 7, I had already exercised, eaten breakfast, showered, gotten ready for work, fixed my bed, did everything that I needed to do.
So while everybody was sleeping?
Yeah, exactly. And I've already by that time, I had already done also one class because we were in training. So we already had done one class by 7 a.m. So by 7 a.m., before anyone is even awake, we had already done a ton of stuff. So there's a lot of value to waking up early when the rest of the world is sleeping and you're able to get up, great. But if you're not a morning person and it means that you're going to be hurting yourself by getting up at that time, then don't do it. Or do it, I don't remember if it was one of you guys asked me, how do you do it?
Yeah,
you do it gradually.
Because that's what Ed Milet says, you have to do 15 minutes a week.
Yeah.
Now I'm at 7:16. I don't know. But is it late, 7:16? Is it okay?
No, it's better.
It's better than waking up at 10.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, if you're the type of guy that goes to sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking up at 7:16 might not be it for you.
Yeah.
I think that sleep is important. You need sleep.
6 hours at least, no?
Yeah. And you need good quality sleep. So otherwise you're not going to be able to function properly. You're not going to be effective. You'll forget things. You'll kind of be euphoric throughout the day. So.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? What's your game plan?
So if you look at years ago, so in my 20s, in my 30s, I used to set goals that were, 10 years out, 10, 15 years out. And I would set these goals because I had a lot of time there was a lot of road ahead of you. Once you get into your 40s, all of a sudden, the road kind of tends to start to shrink.
Oh, you're in your 40s?
I'm in my 40s.
Looking good, man.
42, thank you. It's the olive oil from the, I'm Spartan, so. So what ends up happening is the goals tend to become bigger and they shorter term, right? So the longest term goals that I have take me to about the age of 50. And if you were to ask me, it's $1 billion net worth, okay? Heavy. It's a skill set that has to be learned, right? If you would have asked me in my early 20s, where did I saw myself when I would turn 30, I'd say $1 million. But going from minus $3,000 to a millionaire is a skill set that needs to be adopted and needs to be learned, right? So it's the same thing. I'm in my 40s now. I'm looking at the numbers. I say $1 billion by 50. Learning the skill sets that we need to actually get there. A lot of mistakes being made along the way, but bouncing back from them as quickly as possible. So for us right now, if you're asking me by 5 years, I'll say by 45, I need to grow the companies. So the companies need to go national, fully nationally. We need to bring on board more brokers. We need to bring on board more talent, not just anyone. We're not
Louis Vuitton.
We're not just people that hire for the hell of having people in our company. We're not a super brokerage like the way that you see.
You want quality versus quantity.
I want quality because my brokers are fed by Northeast.
Of course.
Okay. So because my brokers are fed, I want to make sure that the business that we give them is going to be able to be handled and they're going to be able to close it. So we want to make sure that the quality of the business that we have will be reflected also with the quality of brokers and so on and so forth. So we want to obviously grow the companies. There is new projects that are in the works. Some of them very confidential, some of them which are going to be released within the next month or so. But basically by the time 5 years comes around, it'll be a complete revolution of the real estate industry. And I'd like to be at the forefront of that. So that's my ultimate goal.
Good. Well, good for you, man.
Yeah. You said, so from 20 to 30, you went from minus 3,000 to $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
What about your friends from the past? Haters or, people say, this guy was lucky.
Do you still keep in touch with them?
I don't have...
NFL, no friends left?
I have one friend left who works with me today. I broke a lot of people in my journey.
When you say you broke?
Like cut?
No, I broke. I have a certain drive, a certain ambition, okay? People, friends, family, they tend to gravitate to it, okay? When success will breed more success in some cases. So I've had friends that came to me, I want to do what you do. Okay, no problem. Take them on board, train them, show them
the ropes,
what needs to be done, and push them, and push, and push, and push. And then it's like a rubber band, right? The rubber band gets stretched and stretched and stretched until the rubber band breaks. It can only stretch for so far because not everybody has the same drive or the same will or the same why as I had, right? So I broke a lot of friends. So I lost friends because of that. Some people, you ask them, Terry's the best guy in the world. And some people, you ask them, Terry's an SOB. Okay, because I don't hold back. What I feel, I have to say to you, I will say to you.
Keep it real.
Keep it real.
100%.
Whether you're friends, family, it doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you how it is. So that has an impact on relationships. It has an impact on friendships. A lot of the friends that I had growing up, also, you got to remember, when you reach a certain level of success, all you're really doing, especially if someone is insecure and they're not secure in their own self, you're shining a light on their failings and insecurities.
Then you feel bad being around them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, show me your friends and I'll show you who your, what your net worth is.
Absolutely. Your
Right.
network is your net worth, yeah. Totally agree.
1,000%.
And did you feel like shit?
Every day of my life.
Yeah.
Every day. Every day of my life, I think back to all the friends. And I don't think there's a single person that's ever been in my life that if they were to reach out to me and say, hey, what's up, man? Like, I want to go for dinner. I want to go for coffee. I don't think there's a single person in my life that I would ever say, no, I'm not interested. I'm not that kind of person, okay? I will always see anyone that wants to hang out with me, do anything, whatever. It would be my pleasure, to do that.
If you went back in time, would you not have hired them to work with you, those friends?
Yeah.
But then again, it wouldn't make you who you are. If you change one thing from your past.
It's true, because like I said earlier, there's very few things that I do regret. There's maybe the way that my approach on certain things. When I was working at Multi-Prets, I was known as the mortgage Nazi. There was brokers that...
But you learned from that.
Yeah, there was brokers that wanted to go and work with me from Multi-Prets. And I remember the director, he'd be like, you can't work at Terry's office. You will literally be broken. Like, he told them straight out. And, there was the mortgage Nazi. I heard it all. I ran an extremely
aggressive
tight shift, aggressive. And the one thing that I got to say, and the one thing that I really got a lot of from working at Investors Group, although I didn't necessarily enjoy the job and I felt hypocritical doing it, I learned a lot. And I think that every experience in my life has taught me something and has helped me grow. But working at Investors Group, my regional manager, Ray, anyways, a great guy, hated him at the time, love him today. Okay, I actually saw him about a year ago and I told him that I thought he was great. But back then I hated him. He would force me to wear suits every day. He would force me to elevate myself to a different level, right? He was stretching me. And at the time he broke me. He literally broke me, the guy. Like, that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to work there anymore. And I told him when I saw him, I said, I said, do you remember me? And he's like, I'm like, look, we worked together. And I said, I just want to tell you, when we worked together, I thought you were a son of a bitch. And he was like, and he was sitting at the table, I'll never forget, he was with his kids, and I was like, and I think someone at the table went, that sounds about right. I said, but I got to thank you for it, because you made me who I am today, It
got you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it took me out of my comfort zone, changed me, helped me be a little bit different, And I thank him for that today. But back then, I hated him for it. I resented him for it. Just like I resented a lot of the people that I brought into the business that I stretched, resented me. Because when I had my office, you had to wear a suit every day, suit and tie. We represent money here. Because we represent money, we have to look the part. And if you're not in a suit and tie, get the out of my office. So just something as simple as that. You see, we're not on the radio, so I could swear.
Absolutely.
And that's how you are right now, as a street, suit and tie at your office. But that was in the past.
I've calmed down.
Do you think still like wearing a suit and tie, or like now, like the new generation, jeans, blazers, sharp, like the way you're looking right now?
You got to look sharp. You got to look the part.
You don't need no more suits and ties.
The world has evolved. Exactly. You got to evolve with it, right? But if I have someone, when I've had brokers, they've come into the office, torn jeans and stuff like that. Get the fuck out of the office. Go home.
How many
I feel
brokers
like
you
a
have
principal. So we're at 11 real estate brokers, 27 mortgage brokers, a dozen or so active financial advisors, another 30 some odd coming on board on the financial side, 4 commercial brokers.
Bravo, man.
So it's growing. The family's getting bigger and bigger every day.
And how do you disconnect, or what do you do for fun? Or are you always like business, money?
I love TV. I love it. But what I watch is very different than what the majority of people watch. I'll watch, something like Suits, or I'll watch Billions.
I love Billions.
Yeah, Billions is... Anyways. So I'll watch stuff that motivates me. So that's part of the way that I disconnect. I spas. I enjoy flying, so that's what I do. That's
Watches.
Watches, yeah, that's one of my passions as well. So anything that is able to kind of disconnect me a little bit, I'll do it. Typically, if I really need to get away, I'll do something. And this I haven't had to do it in a while, just because business has become my pleasure right now. It's what I do, so I don't really have much of a disconnect that occurs. But typically, when I really needed to disconnect, I would do an activity that would force my entire body to be in that moment. So scuba diving was a good example. When I would scuba dive, I couldn't think about anything else other than scuba diving. Otherwise, I would die, right? I would run out of air and drown, okay? Flying is the same thing. I love flying, okay? I've been flying since I was 12 years old.
When you say flying a plane?
Flying planes, yeah, not thanks to Justin Trudeau. Okay, yeah, flying, okay, so...
Where have you been so far?
All over the place, but just getting a plane, flying around Montreal, going up north with it, is awesome. A great disconnect, and it's, again, something that you have to be 100% focused on that activity. Otherwise, you're dead. You're going to crash into a plane. And I've actually had, I've had one time where I was flying and
texting.
no, flying, there's no signal. Which is actually an odd bonus, right? The signal is very poor when you're flying, so the phone tends to go away. But I was flying and I was coming in, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Saint Jean Airport. And I was coming into the Saint Jean Airport to land, and I got a clearance from the tower that basically told me to continue straight because there was another plane on an approach, and I heard something completely different because I wasn't focused. And what I heard was to turn into my approach to land.
Oh.
And I turned right into the path of that plane.
Oh my God.
And
you were solo in the plane?
I was by myself in the plane, yeah.
You crashed on the plane?
No, we didn't. No,
almost.
I wouldn't be here. But there was a huge panic that I hear come back from the air traffic controller. It's like, basically, he didn't say it, but I know he was like, "What the are you doing? Like, what are you smoking? Like, what are you doing? And he was like, "I told you that I got yelled at." And luckily he was understanding, because I could have actually gotten in big trouble, but it all worked out, and there was nothing really major that occurred, except for it was an incident. But the point is that that's what happens when you're not focused and you're not 100% focused on that activity, right?
Are you planning to own your own jet in the near future?
Maybe lease it.
Lease it.
Yeah,
Northeast.
It's cheaper.
Northeast.
It makes more financial sense.
Of course. So talk to us about your real estate show every Sunday.
So every Sunday, this is something interesting, because we, talking about how the universe kind of makes way for you, or makes a way for you, if you will. When I got into the business, literally 6 or 7 months into it, I got cold called. Okay, so I got cold called by someone at Astral Media, Myra. She's great. Hopefully she'll be watching this. Okay, and she says to me, "Why don't you come? I wanna show you about advertising and all that stuff with Astral." Oh, okay, so I go in and I start advertising with them. And when I started advertising with them, I basically told her, I said, "Look, I'll keep my whole speech that I told her short, but I basically said to her, if somebody ever calls in sick for an interview, give me a call. I want to fill in." So a couple of months later, she calls me and she goes, "Look, we have a show available. The guy is not the guy that normally does is not available. Do you want to fill in?" Okay. Spent the weekend throwing up. I remember she called me on a Friday. It was like Monday or Tuesday that the show was. I literally was sick to my stomach. It was like green like this plant. Okay. Got to the show, did it, and it went really well. And the host at the time, who's Dan Laxer, he was like, "Hey, you seem to know what you're talking about. You should do it again." So I was like, "Okay, cool." And I did another one. And 2 became 4, and 4 became 8. And then next thing I know, the news is calling me, asking me for my opinion. And lo and behold, years later, we end up with the real estate show. So the real estate show is a product of me basically saying yes to all these opportunities that were presented to me. And the real estate show is every Sunday from 1 to 2 on CJAD. What we actually do is we broadcast it live. So we broadcast it on Facebook, we broadcast it on our YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, Instagram sometimes if my phone is feeling up to it that day. So we try and broadcast it across various different platforms. And the whole idea of the show, and I think one of the reasons why we have such great success with it, is it's not a selling show. I'm not interested in selling you. I'm interested in educating you.
Value.
Exactly. So we sit there, we educate the public, and the public, sometimes they call us and sometimes they don't, but at least they got the information that they needed, and we change lives. And I've had a lot of people tell me, you literally changed my life.
Awesome.
By listening to that show.
So let's talk about education. What do you think about the real estate market in Montreal right now? Or where it's going?
Condo sales up, home sales up. I think that we're heading in the direction that Vancouver and Toronto is in right now. You know, the price of real estate is going to go up. If you look at Vancouver, if you look at Toronto, they've all put foreign investor taxes in. So foreign investors.
Why? I don't get why they would do that. I don't understand this.
Brother, our governments, well, first of all, you got to look at it like this, right? If there's an opportunity for the government to make money, they're going to try and make money on it. So they're seeing foreign investors coming in. They're like, hey, let's capitalize on it. And that's what they did. But whatever. Our government, I find, is the only government in history that literally sees an industry that's doing well, and they will do everything that they possibly can
to sabotage
it. Okay? It's like me saying that I have, I don't know, a great broker at the office, and I tell him, you're doing really well, but listen.
Slow down.
Slow down. I need to slow you down because you're going to crash and burn. It makes no sense, okay? It's completely asinine, it's completely ass backwards, but it's not a political show. I think that the real estate market in Montreal is going to continue to go up. My concern with the real estate market in Montreal is when you drive through downtown, look at all the towers that are going up, okay? Are they businesses? So is it office buildings that are going up? Or is it condos?
Mostly condos.
It's mostly condos. Where do these people work? This is the question. Where are people working? So there's all these homes being built. Where are they working? There's no new businesses coming in, right? There's nothing new and exciting coming into Montreal. There's not 1,000 jobs that are being
Amazon's
created.
not coming to Montreal.
Amazon's not
which they were supposed to,
Montreal.
right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
But
None of them are, right? We have language issues. We have this. We have heavy taxation. We have all these things. Okay, so they're not coming here. They're going to go to New York. They're going to go to Ontario. They're not going to come here. But yet all these condo projects are going up. And the problem with the condo projects is you end up having people buying them, leaving them vacant. You know, so you're going to end up with a downtown core that is basically a ghost town, you know?
So with that being said, what do you think about Airbnb?
Well, Airbnb is great, but Valérie Plante ended up putting in a
Stick in the
moratorium against Airbnbs. So people that bought in the Tour des Canadiens, which Tour des Canadiens allows for you to...
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Again.
You know, the hotels and people, they start to complain, oh, we're not getting enough business, people are going to Airbnb, so okay, you know what, we're going to put in rules that say that you can't Airbnb Plateau, you can't Airbnb downtown Montreal,
Ville-Marie.
you know, Ville-Marie, whatever. Okay, why?
Just like when Uber came.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it creates jobs for people.
That's right.
At the end of the day, what do you rather have? Somebody that's going to be home collecting a welfare check and doing nothing? Or somebody that's going to actually try to do something and make some extra money?
You're thinking like a business person. Unfortunately, the majority of the politicians, and I hope to God that there is a politician that's watching this, because I have yet to find one that actually is a business person.
Like Trump.
I have my Trump bobblehead.
For anybody watching this video right now that wants to get involved in as a financial advisor, as a mortgage broker, as whatever the case is with Northeast mortgages, or in that industry, what advice can you give them?
One word: hustle. Hustle. That's it. That's what you have to do. If you do not have the hustle, if you don't have the ability to hustle and to understand what that means, don't do it.
What's your definition of hustle?
Hustle is 8 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. Taking lunch, what's lunch? Lunch is for suckers, okay? Like, honestly, like, there is no balance when you're trying to create a business.
So that's very normal.
That's
To not
very
have
normal.
Balance.
For the first, 5 years?
Depends on what you're trying to create. If I'm building multiple businesses, there's a new 5 years all the time, right? So balance is something that is talked about by people that, I don't know, do yoga and stuff like that. And I enjoy a good yoga session myself once in a while, okay? And yes, you do need to be able to connect with yourself, but to think that you're going to have a 50-50 balance between work life and family life, you're dreaming in technicolors, okay? And if that's what you're expecting, expect the same results in your business. If you're expecting to put in half the effort, you're going to get half the results, maybe even a quarter of the results. Okay?
I love it.
And when you end up having someone like me that comes in that's going to work the 12-hour days,
you're going to smoke them.
I'll leave you in my dust. And it has nothing to do with me being smarter, because I'm really not smarter, okay, than the majority of the people. Not smarter. I don't have more money than the majority of people. I don't have any of that. All I had was the drive. That's all I have.
Outwork everybody else.
Outwork everyone.
And the talent will come.
And the talent will come.
But if you have both, you're unstoppable.
That comes with time.
Exactly.
Because when you start off in a new career or a new job, or whether you're in finance, mortgages, real estate, anything like that, you don't have the talent. Doesn't matter who your mentors are. It doesn't matter you don't have the talent. You still don't know what to do. So you just have to work until you hit that point. It's 10,000 hours. That's when you master your skill, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
10,000 hours to master any skill.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you hit that 10,000 hour mark, you master the skill, and then you're laughing at that point.
I love it. Great.
Somebody wants to follow you on, actually, first of all, not follow you. What do you think of social media in 2018?
I'm gonna steal this from my wife, okay? So she's watching this, I'm stealing this. She says we live in a photoshopped reality. Okay, so she had done a speech a while ago, and she was talking to young entrepreneurs and young businesswomen, and that's what she talked about, how we live in a photoshopped reality. Is social media important? Yes. We went away this summer to Greece. When I came back from Greece, when the kids went back to school, all the parents were like, "What's going on? You guys didn't do anything this summer? You know, it was..." And we were like, "No, we did. We went to Greece." They were like, "Oh, we didn't see anything. We didn't see anything on Facebook. We didn't see anything on Instagram." And I'm like, "What the hell? If it wasn't on Instagram or if it wasn't on social media, it didn't happen or what?" You know, and
It's the new truth.
That's the new truth, exactly. If it didn't happen on social media, it didn't happen.
Oh.
You know, and it's one of these things where social media has a lot of power. I think it's great. It's a great tool to be able to go out and touch a lot of people.
And business as well.
And business, but it's becoming addictive.
Obsessive.
It's becoming obsessive
And narcissistic for some people.
and stalky. Let's be serious here.
It's true.
You know, think about it. In the 80s, if I was to tell you, dude, look at all these pictures I have of this guy or this girl, right? And you'd be like, "Where did you get these pictures from?" You know, I'd be like, I found them and this, that. It's a little stocky, you know?
Of course.
Is this not what we're doing right now with social media? Maybe we're all closet stalkers and we don't actually realize it, you know? And that's why we enjoy social media so much, you know? So I think social media is good. I think it serves a certain part of society, but we can't forget to be in the moment, you know?
Yes. Be in the moment, yeah.
Unfortunately, people, you know, they lack that ability to actually enjoy the moment right now. You know, whenever something's happening, they're going to grab their phone, they're going to start filming. They're going to they're going to see, you know, a sunset, for example, not through their eyes, but through
The phone.
Right? Well, just go on YouTube and look for sunsets, and it'll be the exact same thing.
I think I saw something on actually on Facebook or something. They were saying how people, like back in the days, used to go to a club or to a lounge, and you know everybody was just into it, the crowd. And now you go to a club today, it's like the phone screens. and everybody's taking selfies.
Yeah.
That's true.
There's no more in the moment, like you said.
Absolutely. You know, at the risk of, I know I'm going to get flack from people for saying what I'm about to say. So a couple of years ago, I decided to take a couple of our brokers. We went out and ended up at a strip club in downtown Montreal. We go inside the club. And
Did you get your wife's permission?
Yes, I got my wife's
The
permission.
blessing.
Yeah, I got the blessing from her. And I hadn't been in a club in years, okay? Like it had been probably a dozen years, you know, like from my early 20s. And I'm sitting there and I'm having some beers with some of the guys from the office. And I'm like, there's no one around. There's no girls, there's no one, like there was someone dancing, but that was about it. And I look around and I see a couch. And there was maybe about 8 or 9 girls. They're sitting there. All of their faces are glowing, okay? And they're all on social media. And they're all on their phones, every single one of them.
So instead of hunting,
going out and you know.
they're distracted with the phone.
Yeah. And I had this realization at that moment of how dangerous that technology can actually be, how powerful it is, how addictive. You know, how we're addicted to that ding, you know?
It's true.
What I did is I basically turned off all after that moment, after I saw that, I decided to turn off every single notification on my phone. Still to this day. Okay, so that's why you'll send me a message and I'll respond like, 6 hours later or something, okay? Because I've allocated certain times in my day where they are for social media. It is for my emails, it is for this, it's for that.
Oh, and I thought it's because he didn't like us.
But I think that's what Tatiana Londono said when she came on the show.
Did she really? There you go.
I think so, yeah.
You have to. Because if you do not do that, you will not be able to grow. Imagine you're trying to come up with an idea for a project or you're trying to figure something out and your freaking social media feed is going off nonstop. How are you going to do it? It's not possible, right? So you got to be able to disconnect, and it's a specific times in the day where, at night, if I'm sitting in front of the TV and I have my feet up and I'm kicking back, okay, yeah, whatever. I'll take my laptop. I'll go on my Facebook. I'll go here. I'll go there. Obviously, I'm human. I want to stalk also,
Exactly.
But at the same time, it can't become obsessive. It can't be, otherwise it'll consume you. And if it consumes you,
Perfect.
Business is done.
So do you think real estate is the best way to make a fortune? In your opinion?
So it's the way that I made my fortune. If you were to ask someone that bought a house in 2007 in the States, whether or not that was a good idea, or they bought something in Florida in 2007, you might get a different answer. Real estate is another investment vehicle. That's how you have to look at it, okay? Anything that you do can potentially make you a fortune. The show, your business, anything that you put your effort in will make you a fortune if you focus on it. And you do it for the right reasons. It cannot be selfish reasons. People think that if you're selfish, maybe you'll make money, but at a certain point, it's hollow, it's empty, and you'll lose it, okay? You have to do it for the right reasons, okay? Sometimes altruistic reasons, sometimes family reasons, whatever. For me personally, real estate has been a huge catalyst in my success. And if you look at a lot of people in the world, that's one of the things that have made them wealthy in real estate. You look at Warren Buffett, it was the stock market. You look at Richard Branson, it was in real estate.
Jeff
right?
Bezos,
Michael Dell, Bloomberg, all these guys, okay? We're not talking, these guys are not real estate moguls. These guys are business owners, they're business people, I think that anything that you do, if you put your mind and your effort to it, and you dedicate yourself to it, you'll reach the success that you need, and you'll actually be able to make a fortune. It's not just real estate, but real estate is pretty good. Real estate is
People need to eat and live somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a real estate in the US or just Canada?
Just Canada.
What do you think about the US market, actually?
I think it's great. I think it's great. You know, like to me, a real estate investment is very simple. If it makes financial sense, you do it.
So if that's the case, why didn't you invest in the US? If you don't mind me asking.
Wasn't the right time for me. We were in the process, when the markets crashed in the US, we were in the process of building our businesses. So because we were in the process of building our businesses, the capital needed to be focused here,
Absolutely.
not focused there. And there was a couple of opportunities that I had to buy property in the US with partners, with other people, and I kind of looked at the numbers, and the numbers didn't make sense at the time. You know, and I go back to my first fourplex that I bought, because it's a very simple calculation. And actually, if you look at Robert Kiyosaki, he talks about how when you're a real estate investor, you're one of two types of people. You're either going to be a dairy farmer or you're going to be a rancher. Okay? Both a dairy farmer and a rancher, they use cattle as a way to actually make money. The rancher is going to get the cattle, raise it, and slaughter it, and the dairy farmer is going to get the cattle, raise it, milk it, make money from the milk. Passive, and then eventually slaughter it, but that's down the line.
Or refinance it.
Exactly. So for us, personally, I'm always considered myself a rancher. I don't sell anything. I buy something, I keep it. Drives my wife freaking batty. She says I'm a hoarder for real estate, right? So whatever. So for me, when I bought that first fourplex, I paid $107,000 for it. It was a fourplex, Hochelaga Maisonneuve, like I said. The year before, I could have bought that building for $60,000. When I bought it, I paid $107,000. When I bought it, everyone in that neighborhood was putting signs up, because it was the first time that neighborhood had gone over $100,000. So when it went over $100,000, all the landlords in the neighborhood were like, "We got to sell." And I bought, and everybody thought I was cracked. They were like, "Dude, last year it was 60, now it's 107. You crazy? You missed the boat. The boat is gone. It sailed. You're buying too late." Everyone is selling, but me, I have one philosophy. When everyone is going in this direction,
the opposite.
I'm going that direction.
100%.
Okay, so I see everyone selling. I'm like, I'm buying. Okay, I bought the place, $107,000. My down payment was, including my notary fees and everything, was $26,000 and change. Okay. My profit on that investment every year was a little shy of $15,000, $14,800 and something dollars. Okay, which means that I was making over 50% return on
cash
my
on
money.
cash.
Right? It's simple math. You put 30,000 down, you make 15,000. That's 50% return. That was my profit. So if that building's value would have dropped down to 60, did I lose? No, because to me, I didn't care about selling it. I wasn't interested in selling it. I was interested in keeping it because people still needed to live there.
Yep.
My tenants were still going to pay this. Whatever the building could have gone down to $20,000. My tenants would have still continued to pay me the same amount of money every single month. They needed to live there.
Exactly.
Right? So because they needed to live there, I was good. I didn't have a problem with it, with that investment. People didn't understand that. They thought I was crazy, you know? They thought, you bought too late. Hindsight, 6 months later, the building was worth 160.
And now?
825, last evaluated.
But either way, you made your money back tenfold.
Oh yeah, easy.
From the because you leverage the bank, and then you probably refi. It's all tax-free money.
Yeah,
which is great.
Absolutely. You know, and that's one of the things that people don't realize, right? You have to. There's certain times in your life where you got to take risks, and I'll quote a friend of mine. He's always said, real estate is, you could. Let me see if I can get this right, because it was kind of clever. He used to say this. Real estate is like getting a haircut. You know, you can make a bad investment, you can make a good investment, but just like a haircut, you can get a good haircut or a bad haircut, but the hair will grow out.
Sure.
And where's the best place to start? Let's say, for example, somebody's watching this video right now that wants to become a real estate investor. What's a good market they should look at?
Before you start looking at markets, you need to get educated. 100%.
And how can they get educated?
You see a mortgage broker that actually knows what they're talking about. So you need to go and see someone
and they invest.
and they invest 1,000%. You just hit the nail on the head.
Well, we're gonna invest together in the U.S., right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll buy apartment buildings.
Yeah,
cash flowing
1,000%. Absolutely, I'm game. Okay, so you look and you say, I need to find someone that actually is walking the talk, not someone that lives at home with his mom and dad.
Absolutely.
Okay, and is telling me how to invest in real estate. If you knew how to invest in real estate, he would be off doing it himself. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find someone that actually does it. Okay, once you find that person that does it, you go and you find out what needs to be done to actually get it done. Then you look at your markets, and real estate is one of these beautiful things where it doesn't matter where you buy. I have clients who bought in freaking Atlanta during the crisis. They bought freaking 20, 30 properties in Atlanta. They made a killing off of it. The market is tanked, and these guys are going in and they're buying, making money hand over fist.
Even Detroit. There was houses selling for like $5,000 or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you could still find. So it doesn't matter. You know, you can buy, real estate doesn't have any borders. Excuse me.
And it's real.
And it's real. There's an actual value to it.
Terry, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Thank you for the nuggets. I'm sure many people will get some great advice from you.
You should be proud of yourself, man.
And
seriously.
thank you for, honestly, thank you for having me. This was fun. I enjoy it. And anytime I can give back, it's my pleasure.
If you like this content and want more content, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And don't forget to follow Terry Kilakos on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. The Nick and Jimmy Show, Terry Kilakos.